not try something smart to chew on? The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Monday, April the 15th, 2024. This is program number 1164 and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to radio, of course, you can get us at 101.1 FM, but you can also find us online at our website, rcisenusha.com. We're streaming there, as well as our previous shows are available for download at that website. You can also get us live on Facebook. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. And if you want to call in today to tell us what's on your plate, tell us how the weekend was, you can call in to 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also message in via WhatsApp. That number is 724-0008. You can call into that WhatsApp number as well and tell us what's on your plate. And again, that number 724-0008. Now, a bit of history for today. In the year 1755, Samuel Johnson's A Dictionary of the English Language is published in London. In the year 1861, on this day, the Federal Army of 75,000 volunteers is mobilized by President Abraham Lincoln at the start of the American Civil War. 1874 on this day saw first Impressionist exhibition opening in France, and that featured the likes of Claude Monet, Edgar Degas, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Camille Pissarro, and Berthe Morisot. In 1877 on this day, a bit of telecommunications history, the world's first home telephone was installed, and that happened in Somerville, Massachusetts, at the house of a gentleman by the name of Charles Williams Jr., again in 1877 on this day. And in 1912 on this day, the RMS Titanic sank at 2:27 a.m. That happened off the coast of Newfoundland, as the band played on with the loss of between 1,490 to 1,635 people. We now move to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. There's all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also glass, glassware, and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lance Road in Castries, Bosses Grozile, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, as with politics, lots of things are used sometimes to debate and to characterize the nature of politics. And of course, there's no getting away from it. It is quite often an institution that is sought after by all sorts of individuals. And that is, of course, because of the power and control that comes from it. And so we have seen many forces gravitate towards the and having the desire to have control over the state. And that, of course, has been a very long-standing history of just that. And, of course, we can speak to the interplay between religion and politics that has been very much front and center for hundreds, if not thousands of years, certainly. In fact, in very many instances, there was the deification of leaders to the point where they were considered to be gods or demigods. They could do no wrong. And, of course, we saw the creation of state religions. In many instances, there was no separation in terms of one's identity being that of a certain place and being necessarily, of course, of that of a certain religion at the same time. And that was very, very much front and center in many political moves, to the point where, of course, we saw countries used religion to justify conquest. We saw them use religion to justify taking over one place or another, to engage in colonialism, to project the force of the state beyond places where, in effect, where persons were deemed to be, one can say, not of a certain religion. They would have been considered pagan, and so therefore had to be converted. And the interplay between religion and politics is just one such entity where we've seen that exist in terms of how things have evolved. Of course, today there is a desire to have that separation of church and state, and but yet still, of course, we are seeing, even right now in the United States of America, where there is still quite a lot of influence and use of religion with politics, and in fact politics being even used as a replacement for religious fervor over the years. Well, the other matter too that quite often comes into play with respect to politics is that of race. And we, of course, if you go back into time, realize that the whole development of and concepts of race have meant to divide and rule, have meant to ensure that some people will have the right to rule versus others perhaps not having that very same right. And in many societies, it has become, of course, a very, very divisive matter. We are, in fact, witnessing just that in the case of Israel and Palestine, where you have a situation where people are deemed to be different, not only on the basis of religion, but also on the basis of race, and so are treated differently in that regard. We have, of course, seen the matters of apartheid. We've seen the matters of caste systems in India, and the divisions that exist there over what are quite often constructed separations between people. And of course, here in the Caribbean, we and our history has been epitomized by this matter of race. And you can think to, for instance, certain rights being given to some individuals versus other individuals. And that often was simply put down to one's skin color. And in fact, we also saw, as a result, very much of this whole colonial period and the mixing of people and resulting in what could be even considered a almost a separate or hybridization of individuals who were given different treatment because they looked a little bit more like one race than the other. And that led to a whole issue of classifications of people by their skin tone. And we know of, in some instances, it would be measured in eighths, and how much of a certain race you quote unquote had over another. That has been very, very problematic over the years. And of course, it has again been used in a very divisive way to provide some people in this instance. And so in the case of the Caribbean, you had what was called, I guess, a mulatto class being provided with a particular amount of privilege over and beyond those of others who were not considered to be within that class as a basis of on the basis of race. And this has been very, very much a problematic matter within, and continues to be a matter of division all around the world. Right now, the whole issue of even the current presidential elections right now in the United States has been certainly dominated by a particular individual, that of Mr. Donald Trump, and quite often he has been. People have said that his positions have been racist, and have even certain, or racial in some instances, and of course they quite often look to his stance on certain policies, and particularly how he views the issues of immigration, for example, and how he has effectively labeled certain countries as, you know, being worthless, of course, being effectively a place where nothing good comes out of, has been seen to be certainly pretty racist in that regard. And so the whole idea of race is certainly very much part of what we're seeing right now playing out in terms of American politics being still an issue. But of course, in all of these situations, quite often these things are certainly downplayed, and they are sometimes cast in different lights. So of course, the matter of race is nothing new, and use of race here is nothing new in the case of St. Lucia. And we don't have to think very far back, in fact, where a certain leader of the opposition at the time, in fact, indicated that the then Prime Minister had a massa mentality. And the then Prime Minister he was referring to, of course, was Dr. Kenny Anthony. And the leader of the opposition was none other than the Honorable Alan Shastney. And that certainly was happening on, I think, in a press conference in the lead up to the 2016 general election, where effectively he described Dr. Anthony as having a massa mentality. Now, I think we all know what massa means. In fact, the massa is referring to a slave master. The master, massa, is where that word comes from. And in fact, he even went further to say, in describing Dr. Anthony at that time, as saying that you can change your name, but you cannot change who you are. You can change your name, but you cannot change who you are. And of course, he was referring to the lineage of Dr. Kenny Anthony at that time, to the point where, if I recall very correctly, there was in fact a later interview, or maybe even an earlier interview, in fact, because this is not the first time that the United Workers' Party attacked Kenny Anthony on the basis of his lineage. And the connection there was with reference to the Barnard family, and making the point that the Barnard family had at one time owned estates inclusive of the Dennery estate, and they were seen to be potentially individuals who were in control of these estates, and who had they were benefiting from the system of colonialism at that time. And it's instructive because I think at that time Dr. Kenny Anthony made the point where, his family, just to get the record straight, actually did not come to St. Lucia. They did not come to St. Lucia until, I think, the 1870s. And so certainly after the period of emancipation in 1838, and so were in fact not really at any time slave owners in the true sense of it. But you see, this is the challenge of history as it is right now, because when we speak of even the whole concept of slave master, and or even terminologies like that, the reality is that you had slave masters here in St. Lucia and around these colonies who were white, certainly in the majority, but also there were some who were not white, who actually would have been considered gens de couleur, right? Which was a term that was used by the French, colored people or people of color, or in other words, mixed people, mulattoes, as we would refer to it today. And that was a reality of the system. And in fact, in some instances, even freed black people also ended up owning slaves as well. So it is actually a very mixed array of situation. And quite often, in terms of the current context of what we're talking about now, is that the policies of an individual, can they potentially be classified as being of a certain type, or being driven by considerations that are racial, or considerations that may be racial in two senses. One, from the sense that they perceive a certain agenda that in fact puts one group of people down over another, or in fact potentially also enables another group over another. And these things are sometimes not very clear-cut. But when you actually do have individuals who are engaging in what can be considered revisionist whitewashing of history, by openly making a statement to the effect that colonialism had a conscience, we can see how very, very clearly that could be seen within that context, that this individual seems not to have an issue with colonialism, not to have an issue with the whole system that was effectively suppressing people. Now, anybody can have that point of view, right? Of any color and any. So, in and of itself, the point really is that anybody could have a mentality of being a slave master, regardless of their skin color or whatnot. And so it then is where you have the issue that we were seeing now. How are your policies reflective of addressing these things? Are the policies that you're putting forward pro the majority of the people who actually live in the country? Are they sometimes enabling others who may not be from the country more than those from the country? Now, it's very, some may say, potentially subjective, and of course it's never, nobody ever has written on their face, I'm a racist. That's never the case. It really is therefore a point of opinion when you look at these matters. But certainly, in the opinion of Mr. Alan Jasney, during and probably might still very well be his opinion, he considered that Dr. Kenny Anthony was a massa. At that time, I'm not too sure that there was any major outcry from the United Workers' Party over that statement. I don't know that it was even in any way taken up in a tremendous way by many who were even commenting at the time. And so it's interesting that we're seeing right now in the case of Sir Calix George and his recent statements that it has caused quite a furor amongst the United Workers' Party in his statements at that time. So, no doubt, I'm sure there will be continued debate about this matter of race in politics and the matter of or racialism, and whether, in fact, it is a reality. Should it be discussed? Or, as some may say, it doesn't exist and we should just get on with it and get on with the policies of the day. But we, at the same time, as a state, as a small island developing state, as a country which has been through this institution of colonialism, which is also seeing the impacts of neo-colonialism very much front and center up to this day, and being played out around the world in very real ways in terms of individuals very much like Donald Trump and those who seem to aspire towards some of his points of view, that we need to be very much aware of that reality and how that reality is still quite often impacting our day-to-day lives, even right here in St. Lucia. And so these things don't just disappear and go away. There has to be good public education about the matter. There has to be good understanding of the issues of respect for human beings. The point that even issues like race, in as much as race is not a real thing, it doesn't really exist, but it is a human construct as to how we perceive things. But it certainly does impact on a very real way policies and actions of individuals who quite often decide to put themselves up for politics. And the case in point, of course, is what we're seeing going on in Israel right now, what we're seeing going on in Haiti right now, what we've seen in the United States, in some of the policy actions that we're seeing by one party or the other, and certainly in the Americas, which has been a tremendous victim for on the matter of race, to the point where countries such as Brazil and many countries in South America, they wouldn't put race on the census data. So you don't actually get necessarily classed as one or the other. But it does not change the reality of the attitudes of the people and the policies sometimes that these people who are put into power or who maintain power continue to espouse. And so even where places where people believe or make it seem as if it doesn't exist, and there's no classification of it, and we're all together as Brazilians, or we're all together as Argentinians, or whatever the case may be, there are real challenges in terms of race relations in those countries. And we've seen that continue to pan up right through the 20th century, and quite likely even into the 21st century. And so we know the history of many of these South American countries, to the point where there was a deliberate effort to have immigration from one continent, that of Europe, and to stop immigration from anywhere else, so that the country's population could effectively get whiter. And that's a matter of history that we have seen over the years. We've even seen in places like Argentina, where at one point in time there was a much larger black population, through the use of war, through the use of recruiting people of African descent into the army, and then using those individuals more towards, in terms of conflicts with some of their neighboring countries, then led to a loss of the African population within countries like Argentina, to the extent that right now they make up a very small proportion of the overall population. So there are many ways sometimes that people exercise or exact genocide, and sometimes it is through recruitment, and it is through war in that way. So we certainly have to be mindful of this issue. No doubt it will continue to raise lots of interesting debate. So let's hear what you've got to say. That's our dish of the day, and when we come back, we will be heading across to take in our weather report, and then head to taking your calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Did all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also glass, glassware, and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Brazil, and Clark Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style,
we have tiles and thin sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need to start the house out. For the best price and the latest style, take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library, Beaufort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 45. This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the Weather News.
And that's of course on the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east and east-southeast near 20 miles per hour or 31 kilometers per hour. The weather fair to partly cloudy skies with a few light showers. There is an advisory in the Harris region. Small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise caution due to locally rough seas. The forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times with a few scattered showers over the Leeward Islands and northern Windward Islands. Further south, fair to partly cloudy for a few showers. And the weather summary: the Atlantic high pressure system will maintain moderate easterly winds and locally rough seas across the eastern Caribbean region during the forecast period. Weak unstable conditions associated with a low level trough will cause cloudiness with scattered showers mostly over the northern half of the Lesser Antilles during the next 24 hours. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1. This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and princess, pieces and ground. Everything you need to sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call is 4523046. And so we're going to go to the phone lines at this time to take in a few. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hello?
Hi, good afternoon, caller.
Mr. George, how was your weekend?
Pretty good, thanks. How was yours?
All right. You see, you basically, I mean, you talk a lot about this racist kind of thing that going on, one accusing people of, them kind of thing. But sometimes I say we're suffering from convenient amnesia in this country. When Kenny Anthony got into the politics to fight to lead the Labour Party,
right?
John Compton was admonishing his people to flag a certain approach, and that approach was that he didn't fight against this gentleman's uncle,
right,
in the valley,
right,
to let Massa come and take over again,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember.
No, I do remember that. Yes, very much so.
The people said nothing about that. And he wasn't, in fact, he wasn't even running or nothing so, but he was so-called whatever, senior minister for a while, and then after father of the nation, public statesman of the century, all kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody took note of that,
There's also another interesting one, as you're talking about some of the statements that are being made today. and that were made in the past by Mr. Compton, Sir John. Another one, and it's interesting because he does have a knighthood from the Queen in this instance. But I think recently, now I haven't heard the statement, but Mr. Richard Frederick, Minister for Housing, made a statement, I understand, saying something about Miss Fortuna Belrose. I think something about her hair or something of the sort. And then, or her lack of hair on her head or whatever. But I also remember there was a very famous statement that had been made by, I believe, by Mr. Compton, in characterizing a person who was then a candidate for the PLP, Mrs. Wilsina Haynes.
Yeah.
And who was going up against, for Central Castries against. Right, so I think Mallet had more.
You're afraid to say it.
Mr. Mallet had more hair in his ears than Wilsina had on her hair, on her head.
That's what it was. Yes.
Yes. So it's interesting that these things have been in our politics for so long, but you're hearing lots and lots of comments now.
When we feel, But the thing about it is now that, I mean, you blame white people who could pass as white, whatever, to feel that they could say what they want about black people with impunity. But when a black man says anything, everybody, including black people like himself, are the first ones to scrutinize his statements. Because, we have been boxed into that situation, colleagues. It's like, okay, even though, what was the point? We surviving at the mercy, at the goodwill, the grace of the mostly the white tourists coming here, You could say what you want about tourism outside that thing, but it's white people, America, England, Europe, okay?
In the main, yes.
Right. Now, we can't be racist in a sense that we need these people. But doesn't that we shouldn't be conscious of who we are? Racialism is not racism,
Well, yeah, you do have to be very conscious of your own identity.
Of course.
And that is vital to everything. I mean, you will not develop your own culture if you don't have an identity.
Because the thinking now is that politics, not politics alone, even, on domestic level, people feel pragmatism. That's the ism that running now. They have capitalism, this kind of thing again, what is convenient.
Right.
You understand? Because you will say, okay, capitalism is the way and you believe in democracy. You will turn your backs on the Saudis' money, and when they come and give you the money, you'll say, I don't like how, you all should be supporting Gaza more. You'll say that?
Right.
You won't say that, huh?
No. Well,
you wouldn't even say that when they know they're wrong.
But the most capitalist countries in the world right now depend on a communist country.
Yeah, but if you wouldn't say it as the leader because of, your situation. Yeah, and I feel for some of these leaders, the politicians they cannot say what we could say. But don't run the place like you want to forbid us from saying it. You know what I mean? Because you can't tell us, because shut up boy, just say these things, These people could make us suffer, If these people stop lending us money, boy, if these people stop shipping goods to thing, if these people don't come to our hotels, everything crumble, and it's dog, So keep your cool, don't say these things. Behave yourself, colleagues. Colleagues Junior, don't be like colleagues Senior. Hold your peace. But I'm waiting Carlo to hear him because I feel I want a first-hand thing on this thing, man, on what really transpired and how these people, because I find these people too, it's overbearing, man. Like these people want to put a muzzle around people's mouth. You can't express nothing. You can't express nothing about nothing that you resent, whether it be LGBT thing, the proliferation of technology, or imposition of all kinds of things upon us that because we be second class or third class or whatever class, we have to submit and humble.
You've got to stay quiet.
That is the situation, my brother. So when it's pragmatism that ruling, do the convenient thing in the interest of people, of your people as a politician. Yeah, there are no capitalists, because even China, what nation is China? Capitalism?
Well, that's a good question because it's no. Some will say that it's not a pure socialist country anymore.
Well,
its economy is certainly not based on.
It's a capitalist economy with a socialist governance. Huh?
Yes.
So isn't that pragmatism?
It is certainly so. It is certainly so. And we're seeing.
The same thing we see America moving towards that direction. Totalitarianism, in the interest of the same people who control everything. So these are the people, and these are not people that with your skin color and my skin color, the people that control the world, the run-ins, have all the money, all the influence, all the power. They don't look like us, colleagues.
That is the reality.
Are we go well? I mean, if 400 years of slavery, we don't even understand that. We're trying to understand that. To finally come over that hurdle. We were having people, tolerating people coming and tell us colonialism had a conscience and these sort of things. Instead of chastising them right, whether they are PM or whatever.
I'm not sure if you heard the article that I had read by a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Mohammed last week. But it was based on that interaction with the Guyana president, Ali, with the BBC's interviewer on Hard Talk, Stephen Saka. In fact, I'll probably try to read it again for the benefit of some.
You did it quick. You're trying to shoot in a way that,
Yeah, but I'll read it again
time to really
because it actually speaks very much to that reality that we've taken so much of this condescending arrogance over the years. And it's interesting because just even last night I was looking at something coming out of Namibia, where they are just like in Zimbabwe with the issues of land ownership. And they were making the point that, they've been going through that very same issue where 97% of all the land is owned, or the commercial lands, the farms are owned by a very small white minority. And the attitude that group has is that don't tell us about anything about getting off our lands because this is ours. We doesn't matter how we got it, but it's ours now.
Yeah.
And I mean,
but the whole history of white people and these kind of people, look at in Israel, in states, and everywhere. Don't tell us. I don't want you all to tell us how we got it. The point is, we get it, and it's ours. And we have the entitlement and the right, and move there.
Yeah.
Don't give us no trouble. Anybody, your black people come and you'll say, you're there, you'll work for 400, 500 years, you'll build America. Okay, thank you, and goodbye.
Yeah.
You could go back to Africa.
There's an interesting...
like Trump said, you could go back to your shitholes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
There's a very interesting, and I'll share that one sometime later on in the week. A very interesting... Okay, thanks very much, caller, for that interaction.
Hang up and give somebody
yes, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah. Another very interesting video is one which we'll share in a little bit is one which is entitled. The whole video is about wheelbarrows, and it says what do wheelbarrows teach us about history, and it looks at the rise of the use of the wheels and carriages and horses and that sort of thing around the world, and a certain response in the absence of that in the case of Africa. But we'll speak of that in a little while, maybe tomorrow. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon. What is on my plate today? I like the way you go in with your program because you're going and concerning our colored people at night.
Sorry, I missed the part about colored people. What's that?
Okay, no, okay. Not the white people. I don't call us black people. I call us colored.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I want to explain myself why I say that. Yes, you listen to me, right?
I'm listening. Go ahead, caller, please.
All right. I say, I don't know where that paint is coming from. A paint. Somebody have a brush and painting a color. But let me explain what I mean by painting a color. I mean, like, we, the colored people, is after David when David crossed the Red Sea, and with all the nation,
Moses,
and he brought them to Africa. And I don't know how the white people get in the white brush they have to give us what they want and colonize us as slave as we say today. Government cannot govern if they not have the GDP rising, keep the people in slaves. And now I see issues start to get up by colored people, the roots where they're coming from. So when I see the way we're talking a while ago, I like to hear that. To keep in touch with all the information about colored people to make us know where we come from. Because the history is there. They have it in some archives, and then we will never find it if we not be ourselves aware, desperate kind of way. I take in IT as an example.
IT, you say?
Yes.
Okay,
you see how the people killing one another?
In IT, okay. Haiti.
IT, yes.
Yes.
The name is not Haiti.
IET, yes. IET, yes.
That's the name. If you look in the continent name, it is IT.
It's the Amerindian name for the island, yes.
That's correct. The island is IT. Now, today you see people say they're killing people, so I can say that in Creole. Look at the say monaka choyon a lot, IT, look at the Cherizier, say a gang ka choyon. Somebody had about ça. C'est pas, moi pas supporter tuer. Mais si nous regardons, c'est moun qui a supporté. C'est gens qui a cédé la esclave là. C'est eux qui veulent quitter le pays. C'est moun qui a dit c'est moun qui a supporté ces côtés pour tuer le pays, abandonner le pays. Et qui croit que nous avons coûté service. En seul ça, nous avons fait, nous avons petit web service. Qui a dit, c'est, nous avons créé ça, barbecue. Ouais, est-ce que manière c'est que pour la café parole là qui a tué Benoît à terre, c'est ça, il a sonné ça fort. C'est barbecue qui a tué monde, ouais. Est-ce que manière va peindre ouais. Pour ça c'est Benoît à terre. Et là regardez Haïti. Haïti c'est un pays qui a libéré parce que rôle la terre. Et tout côté libéré, encore ouais, c'est là c'est là qui a fait plus manger et plus toute bagarre qui a entre la chérie papa en Amérique. Et quand chaque côté nous va tant about Haïti. Ça nous supposé faire commander pour ces gens qui ont parlé anglais, qui ont parlé les médias. Ben nous, tout côté en Afrique, en Haïti, pour que ça fait. En seul partout, tout seul, moi, regardez en Chine. Et si ce côté qui nous est criminel, nous va parler de whole pays pour nous voir qui manière Haïti, venir connaître, qui manière ni Haïti, et c'est manière de c'est les gens qui l'a présent, qui a double trouvé Haïti, venir, une nation qui a l'air honnête, et qui a supporté ça. Mais dans le jour, nous, en Caribéen, nous avons pour aller même manière parce que depuis nous avons monté, nous avons prêté l'argent pour ça, maintenir le pays. Et nous avons une pièce de femmes qui a produit. Tout ça, nous avons produit ces bagages, nous avons acheté notre pays. Et c'est ça qui a fait nous un cancer. Donc, il y a tout, il y a c'est ça en anglais. It has high preservative. From everything we input in high preservative that is causing all kind of chronic disease. Because it have too much high chemical. and it come out too fat for us, and we are ourselves in a hot country. We not produce 60% of what we eat. We not produce it in the market. When you go into the supermarket, 50% of people buying everything in the supermarket for the food, and all that I call that poison food. And they're more sick, and they don't have money to take care of themselves. That is my contribution.
Thanks very much for the contribution, caller. Much appreciated. Next time I will call again,
I will make you take a little time and take a little note of each of what I say for you to get some facts for yourself. Thank you very much.
All right then, caller. Thanks very much for that contribution. Yes. And have yourself a good one. And of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today is 4523046, 4523046. And food is an important aspect sometimes in the whole colonial process, and we have heard how sometimes it does have its long-term impacts on us. Very high prevalence of diabetes here in the Caribbean, and there's been some suggestion by certain individuals that there may be an association with the high presence of production of molasses and sugar and rum here in the Caribbean, and the impact it's probably had on our health, and of course as well the importation of lots of salted fish, and that how that has had an impact on issues of hypertension in our region. So certainly, yes, the food issue is a real one, and of course our very high dependence on imported food has its consequences, especially in terms of those foods being processed, and that tends to be the cheaper food sometimes, and the more organic and food that perhaps the vegetables and stuff and fruits that are imported, those cost even more than that. So it puts us in almost what sometimes is called a food desert. There's a major issue in some cities in the United States where people can't actually get wholesome, healthy foods because they're not properly connected to it based on what's available. So it's interesting where we find ourselves in that whole dialogue about it's food security, but also to a certain degree also food independence as well, and being able to better determine that as a country is a really important, should be an important national imperative. So we do certainly take up that point regarding that last caller and some of his intimations there. Of course, as I mentioned, the number to call in, it is 4523046. And just to share an article, it's a fairly long one. I'm not too sure if you'll be able to actually get through it. But perhaps I can at least start it a little bit. And it's actually coming from an online magazine called Zingi. And it's a Zingi Africa magazine. It's entitled House Slave Mentality. And it's on a re-education platform, and it's by one Abel Mirawi. It's from January of 2022. During slavery, specifically in the U.S., the slaveholders commonly divided slaves into two: house slaves and field slaves. The house slaves were those who remained in the slaver's house to cook, clean, and obediently cater for the domineering family. The field slaves, on the other hand, were assigned to work on the plantations, chop wood, build ranches, and to all the field works. While both types of slaves were oppressed and stripped of human dignity, the house slaves gradually considered themselves privileged as compared to the field slaves. Let's take a call before we continue that article. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, hi, may I off the air, please? Off the air, please?
No, you are on air right now. This is the Lunchroom at Radio Caribbean International.
Oh.
So if
I can't speak to anybody off the air? Okay.
No, you're live on air, so you'd have to call the RCI's front office number.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank
Goodbye.
you.
And yes, so we were reading from this article. And it goes on as follows. While both types of slaves were oppressed and stripped of human dignity, the house slaves gradually considered themselves privileged as compared to the field slaves. They slowly identified themselves with the slavers as if they were the surrogate bodies of their masters. The house slaves are characterized as the idolater type, who cry when the slaver is sad, smile when the master is happy, are sickly when the master is ill, or enraged when the slaver is angry. Eventually, they began to despise the field slaves and execute the dirty deeds of the oppressor. The cruelty of the house slaves was equal and at times beyond that of the slaver, because they lived to impress their masters. In the eyes of the field slaves and all the oppressed of the world, the name house slave represents a unique, subservient mentality. The house slaves forgot the shackles of subjugation by comparing their lives with the harsher lives of field slaves. This is a mentality that continues even in the present world, where slavery is abolished, but forces of domination persist. It is a truism to state that neocolonialists continue to oppress the world mentally, culturally, economically, and politically. Nevertheless, their evil intentions would not have materialized without the conscious and subliminal support of the mental house slaves. The house slaves had gone through an evolution when slavery was formally abolished and Africans with the rest of the oppressed nations fought and won their independence. The house slaves transformed physically, but mentally they continue to be an embodiment of the real house slaves. I am tempted to declare that the first mental house slaves appeared in Liberia around 1822. I am referring to freed slaves from the U.S. who settled in Liberia and preserved colonialism by oppressing the native tribes. But then I remember slaves were also sold by local African chieftains to the Western colonizers. If we agree to call the latter ignorant merchants of servitude, we can then call the slave kings of Liberia the first mental house slaves. The former slaves ruled Liberia by imitating the ways of their former masters in the United States of America. They whipped natives just as their white masters whipped them, and set up rubber plantations such as Firestone to satisfy Western greed for resources in a similar fashion to the white colonialists. As they brought their house slave mentality when shipped back to Africa, they became black bodies with spirits that danced to the rhythm of white supremacy. While colonialism enveloped the rest of Africa, only Abyssinia or Ethiopia remained independent by defeating the colonizer and dispelling the myth of white supremacy. The Battle of Adwa resonated the independent spirits of Ethiopians through Emperor Menelik II and Empress Taitu. Inspired by Ethiopia and fed up of domination, Africans were prepared to throw away the shackles of colonization. However, some of the leaders who led or stole the hard-won independence were infested with the house slave mentality as they imitated Liberia after independence. The quest of Africans for freedom ignited all over our continent, and independence was won through the sacrifices of the people. While freedom fighters or leaders played an undeniable role to end colonialism and slavery, we must remember that victory belonged to the millions of Africans who chose death rather than subjugation. We commonly pay homage to great dreams of leaders, but leaders must also pay homage to the people who sacrificed themselves to realize these virtuous dreams. I stress the significance of the people because in post-independent Africa, many leaders pompously claimed personal victory. Such assumption continues to torment Africa and the world because revolutionary leaders who manifest personal grandiosity inevitably end up tyrants, personifying the very evil they helped to defeat. Aikwe Ama, in the novel The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born, vividly portrays post-independence Africa by showing how Africa was betrayed by her own children. Truly, the beautiful ones were not and are still not born by the many African nations that were and are led by leaders possessed by the house slave mentality. It is sad to see post-independence African leaders that treat their nations as personal property, leaving office only through natural death or bloody revolutions. It is depressing to witness the children of African leaders treating their nations as family inheritances. Above all, it is melancholic to discover the reason behind childish African leaders who fetishize power. And this article continues a little bit longer, so I think what I will end up doing is to perhaps finish it off tomorrow, because we're already over time here at our program. And it's a very interesting one from an African perspective, but certainly the message is pretty applicable still in the case of the Caribbean. So that's our program here on Lunchroom at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, we'll be back again tomorrow for another program, and we do hope that you can join us for that. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.